I want to take you from guilt to quilt. Have you ever felt guilty? Well, we all should have. We have been wasting tons of water without even knowing, just because of the new clothes we have been buying. We are polluting the rivers, lakes, and waters on this planet, which we call our home. Nowadays, fast fashion is very popular, although you might not know the harm it's creating. Let me explain how shirts are made. It all starts in China, America, and India. This is where the plantation workers will grow the cotton. A machine will drive over the cotton and harvest the cotton plants. Creating just one shirt includes 2,700 liters of water, the amount of water one person drinks in 2.5 years, and so many pesticides that it can harm the ecosystem and even the people working there. The boss of the plantation workers will send the cotton crops off to China and India. This is where the cotton will be bleached and dyed, and the toxic leftovers will go into rivers, lakes, and the ocean. And now, from guilt to quilt. Seeing a quilt is like going down a memory lane, having a picnic with my family, laying on the quilt, looking at the blue sky, and looking down, seeing colorful patches, not thinking about the harm it's doing to the planet. But now, taking just one sip of water, I think of the amount of water wasted in just one shirt. Think about a quilt, how many patches of fabric it has. Quilting is the art of taking something old and making it new. Sewing old scraps of fabric together to create a patchwork. It's like creating a patchwork full of memories. Historians believe that quilting started long before the Europeans arrived in America. There's evidence that it all started in the temple of Osiris at Abydos in Egypt. They believe that the Egyptians wore quilted clothing in 3,400 BC. Although years later, the British and the Dutch invented quilting in the 13th century. The British and the Dutch showed America their quilting piece they made in the 17th century. Although they believe the first quilt was created in Egypt, it is speculated that archaeologists found a quilted floor covering in Mongolia in 1924. They believe that this quilt was created in 100 BC. All over the world, people used padded fabrics for clothing, bedding, curtains, and even armor, especially in Europe. Soldiers would wear quilted clothing underneath their armor so they were more comfortable and it would keep the metal from rusting up. Before I was born, my parents traveled the world. They saw the culture of many places. Once my brother was born, they slowed down a bit and wanted to settle in Amsterdam. They had this great neighbor that would give them all types of presents, including quilts. Then I was born, and I would wake up every day with my own quilt. Once I started getting older, I would have picnics on this quilt and would make all these new memories on it. Even now I sleep with it because it gives me a feeling of comfort and safety after having had it for so long. It reminds me of the past, of my hometown, and all the mixed feelings it carries. When I came to green school, I learned more about the real world. I learned about what was happening around us. I learned about global warming and many other topics. But one topic that really stuck with me was all the water that gets used in fabrics. Helping the earth is one of the main things we learn at Green School. We learn about many topics, and sustainability is a very big one. In my project, I would go to the neighborhood tailor to collect their leftover fabrics. I would bring the fabrics home and start cutting up the pieces into squares, sewing these squares together to create a patchwork, to create my first quilt. I created my quilt so that people get a better idea of all the things you could do with leftover fabric to prevent water waste. Although we aren't the biggest community, we could always make a change by just trying. I showed and taught other people that we are able to be the change. Thank you.